Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. I'm reading The Wheel of Time for the first time and sharing the experience with you. This is One Good Turn, The Eye of the World, and today I'm covering Chapter 33. We get a montage chapter, guys. An enjoyable chapter. A lot of things happen, a lot of exciting interactions. In many ways, Rand and Mat truly are on their own now and fully cognizant of the dangers around them. I will say I was disoriented. I suppose we'll get into that as we get through the chapter. But the short of it is, Jordan jumps us ahead in time, closer to the end of their journey to Camelin. And then they bring us back to just after they left the inn with Gode. And that's the montage, is them getting to where we were at the start of the chapter. It was an interesting literary device, I suppose, but I don't think it worked for me, at least not on my first read of the chapter. Mainly because the start of the chapter, I think, is relatively lengthy. I can deal with realizing, okay, we've just skipped a period of time. That's not the problem. But before we get to the montage, you get about 5 pages of us in the new segment, in the new time, chronology, place. So by that point, I'm locked in. I've accepted, okay, what happened between then and now doesn't matter too much. So to have been shunted forward and then back didn't work for me. The first read through, on my second read through of the chapter, I felt better mainly because I knew what the format was. The chapter starts with Rand resting in the back of a cart against some hay. He and Mat have hitched a ride with a man called Master Kinch, who is this stock farmer. He's got the leathery face, a taciturn expression with a pipe, and he's sort of solemnly nodding to people as they pass by. I like Master Kinch quite a lot. As they're passing through the village, and Rand realizes that more and more villages are closer and closer together, the closer they get to Camelin. He pays attention to the red brick houses, vine-covered red brick houses, rather, and he notes the inn, which is whitewashed with a gray slate roof. At this point, I kind of want to bring up the topic of medieval European fantasy. Going into this, I presumed that this is medieval European fantasy. Now, of course, humans have been using red bricks for buildings forever, so it's not like it's impossible to have red bricks in medieval European fantasy. But insofar as my experience going through it a first time and what connections I make that are unique to me and my experience with this, coming off the heels of the Four Kings, which I believe I had imagined as sort of a Western motif town or village, I see vine-covered red brick and I see gray slate tiles. I suppose I imagine a more of a Midwest red brick home type situation. And even as they're continuing to pass through along the road, he notes the brick chimneys and everything. So it kind of, I want to express the idea, but I don't know that I have the words to do it. I guess you could say it expands how I conceive this world, the artistic style of the world. It I suppose, allows for more anachronistic elements to it. For those who listen to my Way of Kings series, I think I've commented a couple of times on how I know Sanderson really likes to make his fantasy unique and sort of move away from that medieval European fantasy idea. In fact, I remember it was this whole big thing when I was like, oh, this isn't a fantasy book, it's a sci-fi book. The Way of Kings, I mean. That was my experience as I interpreted red brick homes. Rand notes the people. They're chatting. They're happy. They seem to like colorful stripes and deep bonnets, the women. And he notes some woods which are tended for firewood. It seems like a very quaint place. As they're heading down the road and away from the village, a line of wagons heading the other way rumbled down the center of the road, crowding the cart over onto the verge. So Master Kinch basically has to pull over to the side. He continues moving. He doesn't stop, but the oncomers dominate the road. We get the exchange between Rand and Mat. At this point, we don't know the experience they've had in the montage, but in hindsight, I think you know. And I don't even think you need the montage, considering Goad, to know that they're concerned about being followed. We get the exchange. You see anything back there? What about the wagons? Rand shook his head and Mat nodded. He had seen nothing either. Master Kinch is listening to this. We get that Mat is wearing a Daredevil-style scarf. And Rand asks, "Your eyes still hurt?" "No, not much. Not unless I look almost right at the sun anyway. What about you? Are you feeling any better?" And this is our first indication that Rand has been sick. And we'll talk a little bit about the sickness in a bit. Rand responds, "Some." He really was feeling better, he realized. It was a wonder to get over being sick so fast. More than that, it was a gift of the light. It has to be the light. It has to be. So I believe we know from previous chapters, it's been a little while, I did have to take a couple weeks off, when accessing the power for the first time, I'm not convinced that that was the first time he did it, because we had him feeling his joy on the boat, and we had him, as I interpreted it, using his power on the horse with Egwene when they first left the Two Rivers. We know from a previous Moraine discussion that as your powers come to be, it's usually followed by some quick sickness. So I do remember on my first read through presuming that this was that, because what else would that freak lightning storm have been but Rand using the power? Passing the cartload of wagons, a body of horsemen passed the cart. Long white collars hung down over their mail and plate, and their cloaks and undercoats were red, like the gate tenders' uniforms in Whitebridge, but better made and better fitting. Each man's conical helmet shone like silver. They sat their horses with straight backs. Thin red streamers fluttered beneath the heads of their lances, every lance held at the same angle. So my first read through of that, I see white, I think white cloaks, and I wonder if they are some sort of branch of white cloaks. That does not end up being the case. They don't seem to be a threat. A few of them nod to Master Kinch in a neutral greeting. Others sort of eye the cart, but they keep going. And there are 32 of them. There is no real interaction there. What's more important is Mat asks who they were. Because the last thing we need, it's a new faction, guys. We've got the ominous Aes Sedai with their various factions. We've got the White Cloaks. We've got the Dark Friends. Master Kinch says, "Queen's Guards." He kept his eyes on the road ahead. "Won't go much further than Breen Spring." And Master Kinch goes on to lament that they aren't going to go out too far. Things aren't like the old days. He remembers days when there were guards all around and everyone knew who they were. And they kept the order. They kept the peace. So as we go through the montage, we'll learn about food and room costing extra. Part of that is because I think of the influx of people going to see the Dragon Reborn, or not the failed dragon. The false dragon, that's the phrase. But there are also crop shortages. Like, someone talks about how it's the first time in a while that he's had to actually buy hay. But I suppose we'll get to that as we continue through. Master Kinch wonders where they come from, considering they don't know the Queen's Guards. And it's one of those awkward, they each say something different. They don't cancel each other out. Mat says far off and Rand says the Two Rivers. And man, Rand Rand, stop telling these people things. No, I like Master Kinch. It's fine. He immediately regrets having said it. So I think it has sunk in. He just kind of has to allow himself to be more jaded, which feels like a sad thing to say. Anyway, Master Kinch agrees that that's pretty far off, and we get a really interesting passage. Rand wondered what Master Alvear would say if someone told him the Two Rivers was part of some queen's realm. The Queen of Andor, he supposed. Perhaps the mayor did know. He knew a lot of things that surprised Rand, and maybe others did too, but he had never heard anyone mention it. The Two Rivers was the Two Rivers. Each village handled its own problems, and if some difficulty involved more than one village, the mayors and maybe the village councils solved it between them. I like that passage quite a lot. It really hammers away just how remote his village is and how little hands-on this particular dynasty, at least, this particular queen, has of a touch on, I guess you could say, some of the outskirts of the kingdom. It's at this point Master Kinch pulls to a stop and tells him that that's as far as he's going on the way to Camelin. He's off to his farm, and that they'll arrive in 2 days. They hop out of the cart, and Rand is still a bit wobbly, but he's getting stronger. The farmer waits a moment, and you like Master Kinch so much, I think, through this exchange, he offers to let them rest a day or two at his place. He and his wife have seen it all, every sickness. They've had kids, and Rand thinks to himself, not everyone is part of it. It can't be everybody. You can feel that there's paranoia and mistrust. And in a way, it's tragic to read. Like, this isn't growing up and losing your innocence. This is fear and paranoia. They decline and get the name of the next village where they'll be able to rest and how far away it is. Master Kinch emphasizes he doesn't care what their history is. He's a good judge of character, good enough to know that they're not dark friends. He's confident that whatever's chasing them won't find them out at his place. We get the bit of prose. He cleared his throat as if embarrassed by speaking so many words together. And I really liked that flavor and addition to the dialogue because it builds in my mind this idea of a person who isn't particularly touchy-feely, not accustomed to doing something like this, putting himself out there in this way. And Matt's paranoia gets the better of him and sort of jabs back. You feel bad for him. He's trying to do a nice thing, if you can trust him. And we haven't done the montage yet, so we don't know how many dark friends they've really had to deal with. Like, up to this point, you think it's just been Goad. Matt says, how would you know what dark friends look like? Matt demanded. And he goes for the dagger. What do you know about dark friends? And Master Kinch, his face tightens. So, shut down. You feel bad. He says, suit yourself, and goes on his way. Matt feels bad immediately after, so it's still building Matt's jumpiness. I'm sure some of it is fueled by the dagger, but like, at what point it's like, is it more the dagger or is it more the dark friends chasing after them? Could be either or, honestly. I'm sure they're not exactly balancing each other out. They're exacerbating each other. Matt, in fact, says, I just can't get over the feeling that everybody's after us. Light, I wish I knew why they were. I wish it was over. So, yeah, it's very much making the paranoia worse. Rand affirms, there's still some good people, which is very optimistic, archetypal hero type point of view to have. I really appreciate the dynamic between Matt and Rand in this chapter, and I'm really hoping that Rand's presence with Matt and the fact that Matt hasn't yet, turned on Rand indicates that, to a degree, Matt still understands good from bad and still craves the good rather than the bad. I'm saying I hope there will be a redemption and help for Matt, which I think there will be. I don't know, but I think there will be. Rand asserts they can't really afford to stop and rest. and that there's no real place to hide anyway, which is probably true. At that point, we get a line break. So you know from the line break that, of course, time has shifted. I just didn't expect time to shift backwards. But the very first line, the rain had continued through the night. They staggered away from the dancing cartmen, hammering at them as hard as the thunder out of a black sky split by lightning. It's fairly clear right away that you've gone back to that night. But by this point, I had been locked into, okay, they're 2 days away from Camelin. Great. Matt is blinded by the lightning, and the two of them are running, and Matt is afraid that Rand will leave him behind, and Rand promises, I won't leave you. I won't leave you no matter what. That was really the thought that had me thinking about what I mentioned a bit earlier, which is to say, I'm hoping Rand's good presence will help Matt fight the corruption that he's dealing with over the dagger. One of them wonders about Goad, and Rand tells himself he's dead. He has to be. Let him be dead. They find a shelter in the bushes, if you can call that some shelter. And we get the line, not as much as a good tree might, but he did not want to risk another lightning strike. They might not be so lucky next time. Which I just found slightly humorous considering my presumption that it was Rand specifically who called the lightning. And they fall asleep in that location. And Rand finds himself in a dream, which he knows is a dream right away. He's in the Four Kings, and the town is empty. He walks through the rustled street, and things that pass by him seem to blur. He makes his way to the dancing cartman, and he sees Goad at a table there. It is a horrifying description. He only recognized the man from his clothes, his silk and dark velvets. Goad's skin was red, burned and cracked and oozing. His face was almost a skull, his lips shriveled to bare teeth and gums. As Goad turned his head, some of his hair cracked off, powdering to soot when it hit his shoulder. His lidless eyes stared at Rand. We've got sort of a demonic crypt keeper here. Rand says, "So you are dead." And then we get a really great passage right after that. He was surprised that he was not afraid. Perhaps it was knowing that it was a dream this time. "Yes," said Baal-Zamon's voice, "but he did find you for me. That deserves some reward, don't you think?" Rand turned and discovered he could be afraid, even knowing it was a dream. So I think the quick succession of, I'm not afraid, oh, I am afraid, had a bit of dark humor in this dark moment that I chuckled about. Deserves some reward is an interesting setup to a little segment we'll get to in just a moment. So asterisk reward there. Baal-Zamon taunts him, "You cannot hide, I'll find you," your standard supervillain threats. He even cautions Rand, "If my hounds must pull you down, they may not be gentle. They are jealous of what you will be once you have knelt at my feet. It is your destiny. You belong to me." Rand refuses, saying that if the Dark Friends kill him, then Baal-Zamon will never have him. And terrifyingly, Baal-Zamon's like, alive or dead, it makes no difference to me. It's more difficult if you're dead, but it's not impossible. So you kind of have to wonder at that point, man, I hope heaven is real and it's a domain that the Dark One can't reach. Because I imagine it's a tactic of the Dark One to be like, hey, if all the dead belong to me, it doesn't matter. So you might as well pick me over the light, because I can make your stay here that much better. And this is where we come to the asterisk point I wanted to talk about. Goad made a gabbling sound again. "Yes, my good hound, here is your reward." Rand looked at Goad just in time to see the man's body crumbling to dust. For an instant, the burned face held a look of sublime joy that turned to horror in the final moment, as if he had seen something waiting he did not expect. That line kind of freaks me out. I mean, I don't expect Baal-Zamon to be particularly kind to servants that fail him. I'm so curious what Goad saw there. I'm wondering for what purpose. I guess my big curiosity here is what was Baalzamon doing there? Did he just offer him a moment of bliss followed by eternal torture? Or was it one of those, I'm tricking you, here's what you could have had if you didn't fail me. Instead, here you go. I kind of lean toward the horror is the fate that awaits everyone, regardless, even if they don't fail Baalzamon, because I don't think he's capable of offering eternal bliss. I think he is darkness, right? He is evil personified. So it's just a really freaky passage that I like to think on. What did he see? He reiterates that the eye of the world will never serve him, that he's marked, and Rand wakes up. And Matt is also having a dream. He's freaking out. My eyes! Oh, light, my eyes! He took my eyes! Which is an understandable fear after having just been blinded by the light. Ba-dum-bumps. Blinded by lightning that Rand called upon, which kind of makes me think, lightning of good, because he's the dragon reborn. There's something there, I'm sure. Rand tries to comfort Matt. You're all right. You're all right. He can't hurt us. We won't let him. He can't hurt us. A line I passed over, but I'll get to it now. Rand reflects on something that the Dark One said. What protects you makes you vulnerable. I am going mad. So there are a couple of thoughts I had right there. One being, is the Dark One referring to the taint? And it's that taint that will make Rand vulnerable? Or is it the much more mundane, you have access to the power, so you're going to be sick for a couple of weeks, and that's when I'll strike, kind of vulnerable? I lean more towards the taint interpretation, though. And I was just thinking as I'm going through this right now that this Rand comforting Matt segment really, really sings nicely with the foreknowledge that there's going to be a really, really sweet Matt comforts Rand segment later on in the chapter. They continue traveling. Their clothes are soaking wet. Matt is complaining about his wet bowstring. I will say at this point, I'm kind of done with the travel. I'm ready to see everyone converge at Camelin, and I've had enough chase scenes in this book. So hopefully there won't be too many more. It's not that I think they're poorly done or anything, but it's just been nonstop. And it does serve the function of making me really feel for the characters tremendously. But I am just on a meta level, I'm ready for a bit of variety. They make it to another village with snug brick houses and smoke rising from chimneys. They avoid a farmer's attention. They get a ride from a farmer. Matt's eyes are really bad right now. He's very, very sensitive to light, which is a weakness they can't really afford right now. A man named Alpert Mole gives them a ride. And this is the guy, I think I mentioned it earlier, I don't recall, who his cows had gone dry, his chickens had stopped laying, and there was no pasture worth the name. So if I didn't get into it earlier, it's really emphasized in this chapter through the raising prices at the inn for smaller amounts of food, and this guy who was only able to get half the amount of hay he would otherwise have been able to get, and the fact that he needed to get it at all speaks to it's not just that there's an influx of people coming to see the false dragon as they get closer to Camelin. It's that there are scary weather patterns afoot concerning. The guy thinks that the queen should do something. I don't know what she can do about the weather, although I'm sure she could potentially dig into her stores for those in need if necessary. But, I don't know what manner of queen she is. Is she a good queen? Is she a bad queen? Is she completely unaware of what's going on out there? Is she controlled by the Aes Sedai? I mean, what we do get, the biggest impression we get about her, I think, if I recall correctly, is pretty much from Master Kinch, basically saying there hasn't been as much of a guard presence, and it just hasn't been like the old days. So you kind of get the impression of a receding monarchy. I really like Alpert Mole. so much. We get this great exchange as they're going to part ways. I don't know what you're running from, and I don't want to. I have a wife and children, you understand? My family. It's hard time for helping strangers. If I was a good man, Matt is prepared to attack him. He reaches for the dagger just in case. But Mole goes on. If I was a good man, I'd offer a couple of lads soaked to the skin a place to dry out and get warm in front of my fire. But it's hard times, and strangers, I don't know what you're running from, and I don't want to. You understand? My family. And then he pulls out the scarves that we got from the start of the chapter, and he gives it to them. It's not much, but here. Belong to my boys. They have others. You don't know me, understand? It's hard times. And Rand takes them and assures the guy, we never even saw you. You are a good man. The best we've met in days. And we get the bit of prose. The farmer looked surprised, then grateful. This really serves to make me like Alpert Mole. He's doing what he can while still, looking out for his most careful interest. It's not an unreasonable concern to have. And I keep telling myself, Rand is so obviously the Dragon Reborn. There's something bigger here that we are witnessing. I don't just see Rand saying you're a good man. I see the Dragon Reborn telling a man that he is good, and in so doing is increasing the amount of good in the world or something to that effect. That was my impression reading that. Making the world just a little safer, a little better. It's these small acts of kindness, sentiment. They continue traveling and they get to a village. They're cold, their clothes are still damp. They need a place to stay for the night. They can't play the flute, they can't juggle. Rand more or less concludes that they're gonna have to pay to stay somewhere warm for the night, which I think is not an unreasonable thing, considering their situation, considering how far they've gotten without having to do that yet. There's a little bit of PTSD as they get closer to the inn that they find. The only inn was a sprawling building, all on one floor, with the look of having had rooms added in bunches over the years without any particular plan. The front door opened to let someone out, and a wave of laughter rolled out after him. Rand froze in the street, the drunken laughter at the dancing cartman echoing in his head. Understandably so, but the laughter that he hears inside sounds a lot more warm to him. And there's no drunkenness in there. It's a much better environment than Hake's place. The innkeeper's name is Rulin Allwine. He is a larger man, which Rand thinks good. I'm never going to trust a skinny innkeeper ever again. And the name Rulin Allwine has an Emmonsfield sound to it that Rand finds comforting and promising. Allwine insists that they pay up front, not that they are untrustworthy, but it seems that there are a lot of young folks headed for Camelin who seem to have trouble paying in the morning. He lists the price, and it's higher than they expected, which I think I've more or less already covered. Times are tough. They're eating, they're comfortable, and they turn in for the night fairly quickly. In fact, Allwine is surprised at how quickly they're willing to go turn in. And this is where Matt dons the daredevil mask for the first time. No, he takes out the scarf and wraps it around his eyes to help him see better. In fact, Rand kind of hopes no one notices that, but nothing seems to come of it, at least not for the moment. Rand falls asleep in his damp clothes. He wants to be able to flee at a moment's notice in case he has to. Fortunately, he doesn't have to, and he wakes up the next morning to find that Matt can see again. Not perfectly, but better than it was, and that is wonderful news. Rand feels ecstatic. He feels really good, and again, I'm thinking this is probably preceding the sickness. This is an effect of using the power. He feels so good. They had made it away from the Four Kings, and no one had shown up. That's going to change. They were a day closer to meeting back up with Moraine, who is certainly going to be in Camelin, and then he won't have to worry about dark friends anymore. He even thinks, Light, when I see Moraine again, I'll kiss her. So it definitely feels like a dopamine hit. They're eating their breakfast in the common room when a young man with a feather in his cap, I imagine him as a sort of Robin Hood-looking fellow, comes in. He's older than Rand and Mat, and he has this sort of awkward look about him, I guess. He asks if he can sit down at the table with Rand and Mat, and apparently the common room, it's not very crowded. There are plenty of seats around. My hackles were raised pretty much from the start. This is a sort of smarmy, I think. He's not described as smarmy, but I kind of imagine him as such. Pitiful man. At first, Rand thinks the guy's hoping to leech some breakfast, and he notes his leather boots had never been near any work that scuffed them. Rand nods to the chair, and as the guy starts to sit down, Mat gives the guy a dirty look, and that kind of pauses the guy attempting to sit down. But ultimately, he does. This guy's name is Pater, and I actually kind of like, first off, from a reading perspective, I like this whole interaction. It's very entertaining. I kind of like Pater's attempt here, at least up until the end where he loses his cool. He starts, this is not my idea, you understand. I have to do it. I didn't want to, but they made me. You have to understand that. I don't. So just from that, it's like, okay, I know exactly who this guy is. He has no real strength himself. He's the pitiful sort of dark friend, which Mat immediately calls out. Pater looks around scared. It's like, dude, what you're doing right now, at least own it. And to be fair, Rand does note the guy doesn't deny it. He also notes that this person doesn't necessarily look like a dark friend, which I think is an important growth moment for Rand. Or it's just another step down the paranoia trip. Rand says, leave us alone, and tell your friends to leave us alone. We want nothing from them, and they'll get nothing from us. And Mat threatens to name him as a dark friend in front of the whole village. Pater explains that he heard what happened at the Four Kings, that word travels, and that they have ways of hearing things. And we don't quite hear what those ways are, but I do tend to imagine it's through rats and other animal creatures of the Dark Ones. Mat says they're not interested. They get up to leave, and Rand is worried that Mat's eyesight might make it difficult and telegraph that he's weak and could easily be overcome. Rand thinks of a wolf tracking down a sick sheep. Actually, wolf is interesting here, knowing what I know about Perrin, but I promise I'm not going to say Perrin every time someone thinks about a wolf. But considering they're dealing with a dark friend and wolves are not. Anyway, Rand is thinking about a wolf tracking a sheep and how a bunch of wolves appeared as if by magic, which did have me thinking about Perrin. They tell Pater to leave them alone. They get up to go. Rand concludes that Pater probably only had a minimal amount of knowledge regarding what happened at the Four Kings, and that's why he appears so scared. Pater jumps up and grabs after Rand. I don't think he's necessarily going in for an attack, but Rand rightfully turns around and just clocks him in the nose. I'm cheering for Rand at this point. Excellent. Hoping it's not going to bite them in the ass, don't get me wrong, but I was so proud of Rand in that moment, you have no idea. And he shouts out, I said leave us alone! And stupid Pater needs to get the last word in. He says, you won't get away. No matter how strong you are, the great Lord of the Dark is stronger. The shadow will swallow you. He says that loud enough for everyone to hear. So I don't know if he was a regular in this town, if he lived there, or if he was just traveling through on his way to Camelin or something like that, but the whole town pretty much knows this guy is a dark friend now. Whoops. Mat and Rand rush out and run. No one seems to follow them, fortunately. It seems as if Pater was the only dark friend there at that moment. The two argue about whether or not Baalzamon knows where they are now, and Rand doesn't think they do. He reasons that Pater will have to tell them, and then insists that they not just lie down and let them take us. He refuses to do that. They get several short rides on their way after that point, and as they're getting these rides, they're getting a couple different iterations of the story of what just happened at the inn with Pater. The first guy they meet recounts it more or less accurately. Another man basically tells a story about 20 dark friends holding a gathering in the market. So I appreciated that, the way news travels. And I'm actually kind of hoping, in a small way, that Rand will grow up by experiencing this, because I imagine him and how excited he was for news back when he was in the Two Rivers and Emmons Field. And I imagine him going back now and then, like, some traveler coming by and giving news. He might be tinged with a bit of, can I trust this entirely? Type of a thought. While we're on the topic of the Two Rivers, as they're traveling through these villages, Rand is thinking on the size of the buildings, and we get the passage, "Strange to think of the Wine Spring Inn as small. Rand could remember when he thought it was about as big as a building could be. Anything bigger would be a palace. But he had seen a few things now and suddenly realized that nothing would look the same to him when he got back home. If you ever do." So I really do think it's well-written guidance on Jordan's part that he's able to guide my suppositions to that, because that's basically the comment I just articulated came to my mind through the differing stories that he heard from the wagoners. They head on into one of the inns, and they are prepared to do their bardic routine, their Gleeman routine again. Mat can see well enough to do some safe juggling. Rand can play. I'm thinking, is it really worth it? I would have thought that you'd have been put off from doing that after the events with Goad and Hake, but at the same time, you gotta do what you gotta do. And now that you've been through that, and obviously you can tell that this inn is better than Hake's inn, I guess having been through it once, you would be more prepared this time around. You gotta do what you gotta do. As they're pitching their routine, Rand is feeling more and more queasy. It's really ominous as it keeps happening, and I'm thinking he's probably nervous, considering what happened at Hake's. As they go out to do it, he starts shivering. He feels cold, his teeth chattering. It's hard for him to pay attention to what's happening outside, but Mat and the innkeep are arguing, so whatever it is that Rand is feeling, he clearly appears very sick. They get kicked out, and the dialogue Rand has with Mat at that point, as he's apologizing to Mat for causing them to be kicked out, as written, it's with that chittering, sorry, Mat emphasis, which is a little scary to read. I hope he's okay. But it is with the context of the flash forward we got at the start of this chapter, and with the knowledge that it's likely connected to his use of the lightning. Mat did manage to convince the innkeeper to let them stay in the stable. Mat threatened to go out and tell everyone that there was a sickness in the inn, which would probably cost him business and money. So the guy agreed, and Mat even pulled the trick again to get some food out of them, which I would say is nice of the guy. I'm glad the guy was at least conscientious enough, if you want to use the word, to let them have some food, even if it was under a bit of threat. We get a fairly long passage at this point of Rand being sick. He is bouncing between delirious and not delirious, lava hot and ice cold, and Mat is doing his very, very best to take care of Rand. And it's like I said, it contrasts very nicely with Rand having taken care of Mat when Mat was blind. There's no wisdom to come take care of him. Not that they'd necessarily know what the issue is. I mean, maybe, but unlikely. In fact, there's no such thing as a wisdom. There's just a person named Mother Brune, which is a really nice way on Jordan's part of expanding the world and showing cultural differences in a quick, subtle, not hyper-emphasized way. Rand hallucinates. He sees Baalzamon and Murdrolls. Matt tries to take the sword from his belt, not to take it, but just to be of help. And Rand refuses to let Matt take it. We get the passage, "No, I have to keep it. He's my father. You understand? He's my father." I think having this concern emphasized while he's delirious really highlights how much the father mystery is weighing on Rand. Well done. Egwene visits and tells him that they're all dead, which is, I'm sure, a fear of Rand's. Moraine appears to tell him to go to Tar Valon. Only the Aes Sedai can save him. We get the passage, "Tom grinned at him sardonically. The Gleeman's clothes hung in charred rags that made him see the flashes of light as Tom wrestled with the Fade to give them time to run. The flesh under the rags was blackened and burned. Trust Aes Sedai, boy, and you'll wish you were dead. Remember, the price of Aes Sedai help is always smaller than you can believe, always greater than you can imagine. And what Aja will find you first, eh? Red? Maybe black. Best to run, boy. Run." And I don't necessarily think there's anything with regard to what I'm about to say hinted at here, but I did have a quick conversation with a friend of mine recently about this book, and I was telling him where in the story I was. I expressed a theory. I don't remember if I've mentioned it in a previous episode or not, but I don't think we've seen the last of Tom, and I am kind of expecting him to come back as a forced dark friend. I don't think he's willingly going to become a dark friend, but I'm saying maybe they're going to raise him as a Death Knight and he's sort of going to be a slave to the Murdral type situation who will have to track down Rand in some way. I kind of feel like something like that might happen. Tom is too good of a character to just let die so soon. And it would be so tragic for that to happen to such a likable character. How could you not write that, So we'll see what happens there. After Tom, we get Lan, then we get Perrin, we get Tam, and Rand is begging Tam, "You have to tell me. Who am I? Tell me, please. Who am I? Who am I?" And he goes in and out of consciousness, and we get Matt affirming, "Just rest easy. You're Rand al'Thor. That's who you are, with the ugliest face and the thickest head in the 2 rivers." It's a very sweet moment. It's, I think, big for Rand's journey, his coming of age, his who am I, his who are my parents, therefore who am I? I am the dragon reborn journey. And it's big for their friendship, which I like. There is still good in Matt. He's not too corrupted by the dagger yet. He wakes up at one point. The fever has broken, but he's still very weak, and a woman comes in. Rand shouts for Matt to wake up. He does. The woman, smartly considering what we know about her several paragraphs from now, claims to know a little bit of healing and offers to look at Rand. I appreciate smart villains, and unfortunately for her, at this point, Rand and Matt are paranoid enough not to immediately trust this person. Although they do wonder, Rand wonders if she might be an Aes Sedai and of what Aja. He refuses the help. The girl says, "You were sick though. Yes, and still weak as a day-old kitten." I wonder if this will tell the Dark One useful information. I presume, I've said it 20 times this chapter, the sickness is because of the power, so I wonder if this woman can infer that and convey that to the Dark One, or if it's something the Dark One would already know. Probably doesn't matter. Anyway, she notes that he's as weak as a kitten and pulls out a dagger and tries to attack him. There's some really neat choreography going on, but the short of it is that Matt grabs her wrist, Rand gets out of the way, and the dagger finds its way into some wood. And around it, the wood is blackening and smoking. So it's basically an enchanted dagger of fire. Just pretty cool. I think that's cool. I would have been tempted to keep it, but honestly, probably best not to keep it. We get another segment that touches upon Rand is a good influence on Mat, and I think will help Mat fight the corruption. Mat wants to kill the woman. He has his dagger at her throat. He's going to go in and do it, and Rand shouts out, "Mat, no! She tried to kill me, Rand. She'd have killed you too. She's a dark friend." "But we're not." The woman gasped as if she had just realized what Mat had intended. "We are not, Mat." Now, woman, what the hell did you expect Mat was going to try and do there? He had the dagger at your throat and you just tried to kill him. Really? What did you think, you servant of the Dark One? Come on. Stupid. The prose goes on. For a moment, Mat remained frozen, the blade in his fist catching the lantern light. Then he nodded. And he ends up sending her to a corner of the room. So yes, we've got Rand being a good influence, Rand being incorruptible and preventing corruption around him. Beyond Tom as my favorite character, I think what's happening here between Mat and Rand is probably one of my favorite elements in this book. The woman tells the two of them to stop struggling and that there's been confusion since what happened with Gode and with Pater, which I appreciate. Good. I hope that signals to Mat and Rand that the Dark Friends are possibly less organized than one might fear they would be. But what it does serve to do is remind them the Dark One's hounds are after them and won't necessarily be gentle. Mat taunts the woman, which is good. It's a great line. "So you're having trouble with a couple of farm boys. Maybe you Dark Friends aren't as dangerous as I've always heard." Felt good, felt earned. The woman tries to get the last line in, but she's cut off because Mat slams the door. Felt so good. Rand is strong enough to walk. He can't dance, but he can walk and run if he has to. They drop the enchanted dagger in a bucket of water, and the water hisses and steams, which is neat. Again, I might have taken it with me. Probably best not to. It's not so much that I would have taken it with me for my own use in that last comment I just made, so much as I don't want to leave it in a place where she, the Dark Friend, will easily be able to find it again. But I also understand not wanting to throw it on a tinderbox. So they make it a mile outside the village when Rand's strength gives out. Mat tries to get him to keep going, but he really, really can't. At which point, Hyam Kinch arrives and offers to give them a ride. Thus ends the chapter. So yeah, a lot of really great scenes in this chapter. I really did like Kinch. I liked Alpert. I really enjoyed the interactions with the Dark Friends. So we get two Dark Friends and we get two good farmers doing a good thing. That's a neat little thought there. I stand by what I said about being a bit disoriented from the flash forward, flash backward thing, but like now knowing, I could see someone saying, "Oh, it's kind of neat." Like ending the chapter on Kinch arriving is cool. I don't think I have much else to say on the matter for the time being, so thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thanks, bye.